Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this next installment of a Mastery Empowerment course with the Arcturian Healing Energies founder, Jean Ang. Jean Ang is here with us. We're talking about the Arcturian Temples. These are energetic structures that are not only within our body, but they're on the earth and they're even in the galactic field, the galaxy, the cosmos. Hi, Jean. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Lauren, and hi, everyone. It's great to share this and to connect today just here on this video, but hopefully we'll also connect in many ways with the grid structure of the planetary spheres.
Yes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the cosmic grid system. In a way, that's really what this is. And the ancients have said, as above, so below. And we're going to be working with these energetic structures, enhancing them and developing them even further than we've always done with your work. But tell us more about this. What's going on with these grids?
Mhm. Yeah, it's coming up a lot for people, and I think that's why this sort of is maybe a timely course to put together, as many people are already sensing in their kind of clairvoyant work, their work with their own groups, that the energetic grid lines and grid structure that they're perceiving is very important. I'll just give one or two thoughts on the background for people who might be new, or just kind of place this idea of an energetic grid on the map. So the idea we can even think of as they call like sometimes Indra's net, or in ancient Egypt they called them the masters of the net. Or anytime you see a reference to a net structure in kind of ancient spiritual literature, that was probably those people's or those initiates' perception of how the subtle world was organized, particularly the one that's very close to the physical world. So we could call that the etheric or astral dimensions. And they were probably perceiving like that there were like energetic lines or a grid line structure making up first all living things. So there's like a personal level to that grid structure, and then like on the land, and then even beyond that to like a cosmic grid structure. So you could break it down into levels, which maybe we'll talk more about. The course is sort of broken up into those levels as a way to map this. But you could think of this grid structure like underlying the physical world. It's almost like a feeding system energetically to what we're perceiving on the physical dimension. So it's sort of fundamental to the physical dimension. And then just to kind of place this on the map for people who may be already working this way, or this may be a new concept, people probably heard of ley lines or energetic lines or dragon lines, they call it in like a feng shui from the Chinese medicine perspective. And now we're kind of maybe very aware of these lines, as they're actually ways that they used to be very fresh and positive, but now some of them have been contaminated just because of maybe it's technology or nuclear blasts and so forth. But you'll see people working with energetic lines And maybe we can talk later about like there's a famous Mary and Michael energy line that runs through sort of the southern part of England, where a lot of the crop circles are appearing. And they've actually mapped the crop circles that it actually falls on this energetic line, but the line goes all the way around the world. So just this very special ley line, or a very well-known ley line. And I bring that up because maybe at some point we'll also talk about, we'll definitely delve deeply into this in the course of how these lines on the planetary and then also galactic level, but it's sort of more accessible planetarily, connect certain power spots or certain sacred sites to each other. And so there's this energetic information exchange that's very powerful. So you could call it the original internet.
Wow. Okay. The original internet. So this isn't it fascinating that the sacred sites were built on these ley lines? Is it where those ley lines cross? Is it like a node and the energy is amplified at those lines?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. Many people, I mean, who've taken classes together, and we've talked about the work of Dr. Ibrahim Karim of biogeometry. And this is where I learned this concept that you were just bringing up. But, and I'm sure other energy workers and grid workers are working this way. But if you look at ancient sites, and then we can talk about this definitely deeply in the class, is they're very sort of monumental, like the Giza pyramid, for example. It's like it's amazing if anyone's ever been there or just seen it on a video. But that's actually just an amplifier. Like if you moved brick by brick the Giza pyramid, the Great Pyramid, or it's actually nine pyramid structures, like even like 10 miles down the road, for if you could do that, um, it would lose all its power. It would still have power from the energetic structure itself, but it would basically not be connected anymore. Because what's actually happening is it's the land that's really the energetic piece. So the ancient Egyptian architects, energy architects, I would call them, were able to perceive in their way, probably almost directly from clairvoyant sight, where it was like a wellspring of energy on the land. And like you said, it's a crossing of these ley lines, sort of like I think of it as like a Grand Central Station. All the trains tracks come out of that, or similar to whether it's France or England or Russia, their main train station hub. And then they put an amplifier on top of that to mark it and to like send it out, basically to send it out galactically to star systems. So it was even it was going further than the planet. That's why they had to put the amplifier on top of it, because already planetarily it probably could do its thing, but to go out, let's say, into the a galactic connection, that's why the structure was put on top. So that's kind of it's the Earth connection line that's very powerful. And just to say an example, so they did actually move some temples, in particular, we're talking about in Egypt, because they built a main dam there. So they moved some of the temples they're all linked to the Nile, and they move them, and they're no longer as powerful when you test them, with different energetic tools. They're very beautiful. They moved them brick by brick, just like we said, so it's completely reconstructed. But they, like what Dr. Cream was saying, is that if you test it, it will no longer have the same power because it was the land that was the powerful aspect, and that's this grid. So it's you can't really move the grid per se, but we could also talk about how the grid is changing.
Let's keep that in mind about how the grid is changing.
Oh yeah.
Light workers and grid workers, now we know the importance of what they're doing. I just want to share Machu Picchu, right? For those who have been to Machu Picchu. So Machu Picchu, and it's a beautiful land in the valleys and up at a specific height, but energetic. Isn't it interesting? If our physical body is not ready, hey, there's Jean at Machu Picchu. Yes, I stood there. On 12/21/12, I just share this because it's interesting, and this is what happens in our group sessions is that we share these experiences. But when I was there for 12/21/12, my ego personality had other plans in mind, but the energetics of the situation, we had a team of 13 of us, and
Wow.
10 of us fell ill,
Ah,
fell like, stomach, not feeling right, having to be in bed, feeling dizzy. And it wasn't a sickness. It was nothing that we ate, and it really was energetic. So, what does that have to do? This moves us into the fact that these grids are within our bodies as
mm.
well. And this is why it's important for us to ground on Mother Earth.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like you said, like going to these sites is a way for light workers and grid workers like yourself, that group, with the intention, like even aligning it to the certain planetary dates. That's beautiful. I wrote that down, 12/21/12. It looks great, like kind of like Anna, the word Anna, Anna. You can read it backward, the palindromes. But anyways. Yes. So maybe to speak specific, well, just in general, when you do get called to those places, just by going there, you carry in your grid system codes that even consciously you don't have to be doing anything by, you just carry them, they upload and download into your system like a server. And then, but very consciously, grid workers will get messages maybe from the land spiritual consciousness or the consciousness of the beings there, like to get to then go to another place on the planet. It could even be where they live, like their home, like a sacred site around their home that's no one knows like as a formal sacred site. And then they're uploading and downloading codes or energetic information that they went, brought from Machu Picchu back, let's say to Colorado, to the mountains of Colorado, or the mountains in California, for example, like kind of where I live. And sometimes the spirit of the mountains, they're like brothers and sisters. They'll say, go like the mountains in Peru will say, go and, bring these codes over there. So that's a little bit how the light workers can work, just in case people didn't really know that formally. But like you said, that's a lot on our system because anytime you start working, so we'll maybe get to the galactic level of the grids, but anytime you work, even like at your home, like if you are like a feng shui practitioner or a space clearer, even if you're just going to a home grid system, like a system that's like a about the size of a home, compared to our grid system, like if a person was an energy worker for individuals, it's completely like at least let's say 100 times, and that would be a small house, the size of an individual's grid system. And then now you think about going and we're doing energy work at like a planetary spot, like Machu Picchu here in the background, and there's tremendous amount of energies going through, and so that's why people actually in feng shui they say you first have to master individual qigong practices before you can like even like 10 years or even more before you can start to be like a feng shui practitioner because of this jump in be working at like a larger energetic system. So anyways, now that people are doing, being called to do this, it is like what Lauren mentioned, to be aware of the tremendous amount of energies that are running through, to take care of one's physical vehicle, particularly like you said, and that yes, our best laid out personal plans, because we're working now at a unified field, galactic or planetary level, could get changed. So be open to pausing one's schedule if it gets called that way.
Yes, go with the flow. All right, amazing. So, this shows us how we are all connected. We are all one. Do you need to be aware of these codes? How would we know when codes? You said we might not even be aware that we're doing this.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, I think now, of course, I think the move is to be as consciously aware, perhaps from the higher self or this greater awareness. Many people on the planet now are doing some type of contemplative or meditative practice where they can still that personality mind, what we might call in meditation the chatter, and then hear. like in the silence, the kind of greater guidance, or people are very being guided now, very much so from either their spiritual connections or their higher self. And usually they'll download kind of consciously why people are being called to certain places. So they consciously will know, like, I'm going to Peru, perhaps maybe on some outline level at least, like why we're going to this site and that site. And then sometimes people get very aware of like, oh, I need to go there, particularly to connect to these beings. And they're downloading, this download, and I'm going to go bring this to Hawaii, in then 3 months from now. So it could be very specific, and that's all great. And then just to know that there's probably even more, like because it's such a big energetic system. So I think that's the mystery and the beauty of doing the grid work, is that you get to be part of this huge galactic and planetary download and interconnection. It's a bit like before, like when we had the cell phones that were just the flip phones. It kind of, we were connected. We could call people, maybe take a photo of each other. But now, like these new Samsungs or Galaxies, iPhone 12, you can search the internet. You could make this video together on one of those. So it's just, I think it's the same metaphoric. Like now, there's just so much bandwidth that can come through on with planetary and galactic grid work. It just makes one spiritual path very creative and exciting, as well as doing a lot of service.
Doing a lot of service. All right. So, this session, these 3 sessions with you, are going to help us increase our bandwidth as well in these energetic structures. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Let's talk about how this grid system is changing.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's great. Yes, I think this is why people are now getting visions. Some people who kind of I personally was working with, and probably people here just who are interested in watching, the audience here are getting more direct visions of the grid, because it's not static. In fact, it's probably changing moment to moment, but like major shifts, of course, just like major shifts in our lives, maybe are, every so often. But now, like we can see, like the planet is changing because our lives are changing so rapidly. So the grid system, which you could say, because it's so large on the planet, let's say, is fairly consistent, but now over cycles of time, they could be shifting. So to bring up some other areas, so like Jerusalem is a very powerful energetic structure, and that a lot of grid workers or people who tune into the grid could say that's why there's a lot of so-called what we look as physical conflict, because those are such important energetic sites, whether it's conscious or subconscious, about the energy aspect and the temples and these sites are also, for people who are interested, places where very high souls can incarnate into. So if you think of all the Jewish mystics, all the mystics in all the different actually religions, Muslim, Christian, who kind of incarnated in that Middle East area. There's a reason for that, because of the power of the energy spot there. Maybe this is something we can expand on. It looks like maybe in the class, but here too, is there's certain birth sites, according to the grid, that souls can enter into, and these are very well known, actually. I mean, maybe not well known, but known in the esoteric community. So there's a particular birth site in Kauai that on a certain mountain where souls will come in. And then on another part of the island, there's certain parts where souls, after they've completed their learning and mission on the planet, will leave at the time of, let's say, physical death. So the grid has these unique portals for that, or energetic entry points and exit points. And then the other place to put on the map is like Tibet. Now, a lot of the great spiritual information through that tradition, in, let's say, since 800 AD and probably even earlier, came through initiates who like took on bodies in Tibet. And Tibet is a very powerful energetic structure. But we can also see through world history that there's like this Tibetan diaspora, where like even the Dalai Lama isn't able to go back to Tibet. He's in India. And so they kind of feel like some of that energetic power is moving, and actually to moving to South America is like one form. And so now a lot of Tibetan lamas, reincarnate lamas, they come back lifetime and lifetime. They've created their Dharma centers in South America because they feel like maybe it's moved to Chile or actually to another place. So these energetic power spots, they can shift and move according to the times.
Yes. All right. So that means we can do this in ourself as well. So how do we work with this? This is the Arcturian temples, and this is really the Arcturians are working with the divine power spots within our energy bodies. So let's describe how we're going to work with these.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think that's maybe we could start there. Like, why are the Arcturians interested in this? And in general, why are the, let's say, certain spiritual consciousness or beings who people, they may be people's guides or that people know are interested? Because I think that's like a community, it is like an internet. You could call it an ethernet that higher consciousness can communicate energy and information through this energetic grid structure that should be thought of. There's a personal one, and that's very similar to our acupuncture lines. There's a planetary one that we've been kind of more focused on with the power spots we just discussed. But then that goes out into the universe. Like there's a star one, like it connects to other star systems. And so I think on that level, these consciousness beings are communicating. So that same grid structure could get blocked. It could get or not as open, and that's probably why, like, if you connect to the Apus, who are the spirits of the mountains, for example, like in the Peruvian kind of is a Peruvian word or shamanic tradition, they may ask you to like go to another Apu in another country to exchange energy and information. That's because they're trying to open up the grid structure so that free flow is happening. So I think that's why the Arcturians are interested, is to help people who would feel very conscious about working with the grid structure. And it might not even be on a conscious level yet, but they could help a lot, who are called. It's almost like calling to service to like make sure the grid structure is completely connected, as well as connecting into it more consciously. So that's why I think the Arcturians are there for support. And the other thing, just to mention, is people who are very interested in the unidentified aerial phenomena or UFO phenomena. They feel like the appearance of the UFO or ET ships come along grid structures, and so like now, I have the Mount Shasta. That's like for people who have been there or know about. It's like an energetic hub too, particularly for sightings. So mountains tend to be great places for sightings. Like James Gilliland has his ranch up in Washington. I'm not sure he's been on your show, but he's great. So there's tremendous sightings. Like even like 10 yards away from you, you'll see a ship like just shoot up into the sky. And so mountains are great portals for these grid connections. So they feel like the ships can like use that energy to materialize and dematerialize into the subtle planes and into the physical world, mostly as light. Yeah, so that was just kind of some background on that.
That is so fascinating. There's been people who've reported seeing UFOs go into the side of a mountain. That could be the dematerialization, right? Omnik Onik,
Oh,
she is from Venus,
oh,
and
nice.
she came in on a spaceship through Tibet, where
Oh,
she
wow.
came in and then acclimated to Earth plane in Tibet. Isn't that
Oh,
interesting?
yes,
So
yes.
then the chakras of our Earth, are they centered? Because Mount Shasta the root chakra?
That's what I've heard. Yeah, so maybe kind of going back to how the program that we were going to do that we're doing here is broken down, and then yeah, to how that works. So like the first day is focused on the individual, you could call it system, or we have our grid system, and people probably are more very familiar with that terminology like chakras and channels. But we, and then if people have ever studied the Kizaminak, the Book of Knowledge, they have a couple chapters, or they call them scrolls, on what they call these interdimensional lines on the person. They call them axiotonal lines. And so this is this energetic information exchange. It's really a grid system for the individual level to actually jack in or communicate in. You could call it like your personal computer. And then your your Wi-Fi device on your computer jacks you into the, let's say, the planetary grid system, which is like the internet, our current internet, like metaphorically. So when there are personal lines and points, the hubs, which you could call the chakras, but there could be ones that we don't really haven't named. And I think the Arcturians can actually put in, and that might happen. That was maybe also part of this personal first day, is the Arcturians could actually help you create a hub. That doesn't necessarily have to be one that's known as a chakra, and also not necessarily in the vertical line, that can increase your communication link to the so-called internet of the planet, and particularly galactically beyond. So I think that's particularly the first day, is because some people have already been working with their chakras for quite a long time, but this kind of, it's almost like upgrading your Wi-Fi system, is what I think the first transmission is, like personally, your energetic grid, what the Arcturians could do.
All right, so we're excited for this because it's a meditative session with you, and the people who join us feel this and share their experiences, and it's different for everyone, right? And so it just helps all of us understand what's going on and the importance of all of it. So as we work on the personal level, can we create a hub for a specific intention as we increase that communication?
Yes, yes. So that's the beauty of the kind of the framework is of the course, is that the transmission is a time to connect primarily first to your higher self, then to your guides, whoever you might, maybe consciously, or maybe some of them are in the background subconsciously been helping you. And then finally, if people want to connect to the Arcturians, kind of they're present with your specific intentions. Maybe people know kind of what they'd like to be more connected to on a practical level, and also on the sort of grid work level. So it could be very practical in manifestation intentions. And then if there is a like a new energetic communication hub that needs to be put in your system, or a strengthening, partly it's the strengthening and connection of our current grid system, that will occur during the transmission. Um, and then maybe I could say a couple words on how those link to day 2 and 3, just to kind of complete the, so how the program works in terms of what we've been talking about. So then day 2 is more the grid system that's actually more in your local environment, or like you could say the planetary environment too. So, but it's good to not go like feel like, oh, I have to on the planetary level, that I have to go to a known sacred sites to do this kind of work, because what's very important is actually the land that you're currently on, wherever you're living on the planet. So, because the grid system goes everywhere on the planetary level, and we're almost like caretakers of that land grid, and the spiritual consciousness supported by that land. So that part of the transmission on day 2 will help us connect there. Also, you could create with the help of the higher beings, a hub that's like in your local land system. And I mentioned this in the write-up at the very end. There is a way to like use the MP3s. Like you could, if you know there's a site on your land or in your that you wanted to, you could replay the transmission to kind of help bring the energies to that area, to kind of bolster that part of the grid system. So that's day 2. Maybe I'll just pause there, but
All right, that's very interesting. So we can create a hub, we can draw the energy to our land, and that's maybe why we're there. Can we create a portal in our yard?
Uh-huh. Yes. So portals are, and maybe that's why I call them Arcturian Temples, the title of the empowerment or mastery. Yes, empowerment class. Yeah, we did the portals recently. Portals are a little bit like an interconnection between dimensions, which also works with the grid system. So it could be like a portal from one dimensional area to another one. And then the emphasis here is perhaps working with the actual grid system in general, and portals being a unique part of that. So a hub that we'll keep referring to, it could be a portal, but it doesn't necessarily have to open up into another dimension. It could just be like a way to connect deeper into the existing grid system, if that makes sense. So there kind of
Yes.
maybe the slight distinction on those two structures, just because we've done kind of now we'll be doing two emphasis on two different mastery empowerment classes. So if you wanted to hyper jump somewhere else, you do the portals. We are consciousness. And if you kind of want to stay energetically connected to that area and communicate to that area to another area through the grid system, then you use the grid. Yeah.
All right, so the Arcturian temples are here, that we can put in our own land. So that's us connecting with the land then. And how would we connect that to a galactic line or galactic temples?
Yeah, so that's the interesting thing. That's the kind of, I think, also fascinating, and that will be the day three, is that this grid system goes beyond the planet. In the book I referred to by J.J. Hurtak, sorry, on the Keys of Enoch, the Book of Knowledge. So they call these lines that are larger than the personal system axial lines. So there's ones around the Earth, and then those go out into the planet. And then I had mentioned, and maybe Eric Pearl had been on this on your show, but he started a modality called the reconnection, which also is kind of a grid work type. And when I got that work done, I was still in science. My consciousness was probably more still really focused in the scientific model, although there's the deep spiritual longing or connection. That was probably why I was moving in the direction of more healing. But when I got that grid work done, called the reconnection, I definitely, which is more based on J.J. Hurtak's kind of model of axiatonal lines and axial lines, I definitely felt I was not just intellectually, but conscious, like on a deep consciousness level, being opened up to galactic consciousness. And so I would kind of attribute a lot of the work that I'm doing now to that grid work that was done from my personal system to the planetary system, and in particular out to the galactic system. So on a personal note, when we start to connect to the galactic grid system in our own spiritual development or consciousness, and this has been my experience, it opens you up to much more interdimensional consciousness, interdimensional connections, and this exchange of energy and information. And we may call them star beings. It seems like an external, connection, but actually, I think what we're connecting is deeper aspects of our true self or our deeper self. That's not just the planetary. It's like completely part of the whole unified universe, unified field.
Yes, all right. We're connecting to the unified field, to the oneness that we are, that we come from source. Well, all right. This is going to be a beautiful series of expanding into this grid and enhancing this grid and working with these Arcturian temples. This is consciousness and information. So get ready, everyone, as we are ready to expand. Is there anything else you'd like to add about these sessions?
Oh yeah, a lot of times even though we meet for 2 hours a day, the whole 3 days, before and after, as soon as someone I guess connects in or has already been connecting in on their own personal way to the information field that's sort of being created here from our higher self and the higher beings, of course, the divine. Um, a lot happens like in between sessions, particularly at night, like we've been working a lot with the dream state. So even maybe some people may have already had dreams before they watched this introductory video, but even just maybe having watched this video from here to there, or if you take part in the program or not, you might watch your dreams. because the work actually happens. A lot of the work, grid workers are working in their dreams before they even know they're grid workers. And they'll probably become much more conscious now. So that's the only thing I would say as something fun to focus on is the dreams now.
Yes, it really is its own energetic bubble with our group energy that allows people to share. And we've often heard reports as we gather for the first day that people have started noticing things even before they arrive at the first session. And so, even if people are working with the recordings or can't join us live, they can still participate and share in that experience because the dreams really are quite fascinating. All right, well, we encourage everyone to check this out. This series is available right here on this webpage. We'd love to see you on Zoom, or you can join us through the recordings. Let's do a little mini session.
Oh
Do you
yeah.
want to do one of these frequencies?
Oh
Your
yeah.
choice. Okay.
Oh yeah, let's go galactic and we'll tune into the galactic grid transmission or Arcturian Temple transmission. And just to say, yes, I think there's actually like a Arcturian grid school. That's actually what this is a manifestation of in the inner world. So you this the kind of dream suggestion is that you'd probably be tuning into that, or you're probably be learning directly from that. Yes, so we'll connect it actually into this Arcturian grid school or temple, Arcturian temple school in the inner world, and we'll be coming, bringing through a couple minutes of the Arcturian temple transmission on the galactic level. You can just relax and just be aware, see what you feel. We're starting the Arcturian temple galactic transmission. In particular, this is helping us if you like to make a conscious connection to the Arcturian grid school that helps to understand how these grid lines and grid systems on the personal, planetary, and galactic level work. How we can utilize that to bring more joy, happiness, energy, information exchange to ourselves and to others. Also, how we can help the planet and extraplanetary resources and connections if we're called to do that type of work. So continue to deepen the Arcturian Temple galactic transmission. You may begin to receive even now, but in the next few days, either in your waking state or dream state, energetic information that will personally help you to work with the grid system on whatever level. We're entering a third and final deepening phase of the Arcturian Temple galactic transmission. This also will help us to achieve non-dual awareness of the complete unified field to all aspects of our consciousness. And that completes the transmission. When you feel comfortable, you can open your eyes, your fingers.
Just a beautiful, short little dose of the Arcturian healing frequencies for the Arcturian Temples, the Arcturian Grid School. And we know that that will continue to work with those who received it, and it will reveal information to them. But you know, Jean, I wanted to just say that I got the feeling of the grids. I felt the feeling of the grid. And that's cool. I never understood it in such a way before. And we were talking before we started this program and saying, you know, the heart is really important, that we stay anchored in the heart and make decisions from the heart on everything. And this was presented that that's how you travel the grid or work with the grid or understand the grid is
Yeah,
all the joy, and you can feel it. So if we're out in nature or in our yard, you know, it's like every time we see a beautiful shady tree, it could just be like one or two trees and it just looks so interesting there, the way it feels or the way it makes us feel. That's the grid.
yeah, exactly. It reminds me, and maybe people will have to watch that, or people, the Avatar movie where you get to see how the avatars look at their planet. It's all like a grid, this light, almost like neon lights, but connected in. So yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Beautiful. Well, if you have a chance to watch Avatar before we meet, that would be really cool to feel into that and connect. We invite everyone to join us, please. It would be beautiful to see you there. We love your energy, and it's such a beautiful 3 days together on Zoom or by the recordings. So thank you so much, Jean. We are looking forward to this one. Thanks, you.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, everyone. See you soon.